Welcome, everybody. This is Francisco Servant. Welcome to Rethink Your Legacy. I am your attorney and problem solver at law. And if this is, maybe one of the first times that you've joined us, I welcome you. Welcome. Good morning. So we're here early to take care of business, right? To take care of your families. If you haven't tuned in before, I'm an estate planning attorney at Keystone Law Firm, where we do asset protection, we do estate planning, we do estate administration. And just over the 14 years of working in this area, you just learn so much stuff about what happens out there. And this year was the year where I was kind of challenged to get this, share what I know and talk about it. And so that's what birthed our this radio show, Rethink Your Legacy. We actually also have a sister company. You can tune in every week just the hour before this. And Keystone Wealth Partners, they have a show. It's called Rethink Your Money. Ha ha ha, right? Easy to spin off that one. But tune in on that one. That's every Sunday, just the hour before this. And John Hagenson, my good friend, he goes through you want to know some stuff about the stock market and investing and how messed up that world is? You want to get a behind the curtain look? Check that show out. Rethink Your Money, Sunday morning, just before this one. But welcome everybody. Good morning. A blessed Sabbath to you all. It's what kind of, what's happening in the world today. Well, it looks like football season is back, right? Oh my goodness. My staff's like, you got to cover football. And I'm like, I don't watch football. And they're, so what? You have to cover it. Everybody watches football. So I'm like, all right, let's cover something on football. And so, here we are. It's football season. Well, my gosh, holy cow. It is football season. Did we really get to start a football season this year? Isn't it crazy? That's what, honestly, for me, that's the crazy thing, is that football season kind of almost sort of didn't really happen. And not just that, but Coach Bidwell, actually had to go to the hospital because of COVID. Thank goodness, he's doing better, and the team's, got his leadership back. But geez, talk about directly affecting a massive organization. And as I'm digging through and learning a little bit more about how COVID is impacting the NFL, you guys know more about this than I do, but you see Big Ten, Pac-12, they're literally delaying the start of their season. NFL delayed, they're delaying the start of their season, and okay, well, what does that mean? Holy cow, that actually means that might affect the NFL draft pick for the next season. Like, these things just have all these cascading effects, right? Like, how are they going to squeeze all this stuff in the time that they have? It's going to be a really crammed in there tight season, I think. And hopefully, so many of these players, they're literally looking at their future. Their livelihood is being decided by this coronavirus pandemic. And people who play in high school, guys who play in high school football, right? Seniors, they graduate, go off to college, and college season isn't necessarily starting on time. It just has so many ripple effects through everybody's lives. And it just, that to me, that's the big kind of, holy crap, what's going on here? And then it got me really thinking when they decided to pull the trigger, like, okay, here's the start date. How many moving parts there are that quote unquote football season have included. Think about all the moving parts there are to finally pull the trigger and say, all right, here's the schedule. We're going to run it out. The players, obviously, but the facilities, the stadiums, the buildings, and then all of the people, the staff, the employees who work for the teams, who work for the facilities, who work for the TV production companies, the commercials that need to run, the sponsors. It just almost, like, my brain hurts when I think of how many moving parts there are. And yet that's in a big way it seems like it's almost impossible. Like, how could it ever work? How could they ever get all those pieces to work together? But they do. They did it, and they're going to do it. And honestly, they do it every year. But it takes more than just a big giant guess, right? So that's kind of where I want to take off as a jumping point for me. As an estate planning attorney, that's what we do. We take all these pieces together and make a plan out of it. Look, if you need help, don't wait till the end of the show. Don't wait until, something triggers you. Just give us a call, leave us a message. 480-750-7788. My team will take all the messages we get on the weekend. They'll give you a call back as soon as they can, first thing Monday morning, and we'll see what we can do to help. But if it's just sending you our show notes, our checklist from today, or sending you a free copy of my book, Pack Your Parachute, totally fine. Whatever we can do to help you is what I'm committed to. But don't wait. Don't wait till the end of the show. Just give us a call now. Leave us that message. Say, hey, I think my family needs, I think we need a trust. I think we need a will. What do we need? Can you send us some information? We'll happy to do that. But like I look at that big organization or all the different organizations that are involved with the NFL, and I think, what would happen if they didn't plan this thing out? It would just be absolute chaos. It would be chaotic. It wouldn't happen. The players wouldn't get paid the money they get paid. The teams wouldn't earn, the revenue they earn. The fans wouldn't get the experience they get. All the employees and workers behind the scenes wouldn't have the jobs they have. It would have a gigantic ripple effect, right? And that's really what, that's really what we see happen with people in a completely unintended way. In a way that most people, honestly, we haven't experienced, and I wasn't even really aware of until I got into the business. It wasn't something that impacted me and then drove me to go become an estate planning attorney. I went to law school. I loved law school. I learned so much interesting stuff. And then, but all along, I'm just like, I'm not going to be one of those typical lawyers. I'm just not going to be that. And I really enjoyed figuring out how families can kind of plan and protect their stuff. That just kind of, interested me. And as I got into it, I saw, oh my gosh, there are so many problems here when you don't do it right. And the one problem I want to focus on for today is a really sad one. And you just wouldn't even believe it sometimes that these things are real and they really happen. Is what happens when during your life or during someone's life, you become either a little elderly or you need a little bit more help. And some in the family start to become like vultures and they descend. And literally while we're still alive, they start to prey on our victims. I don't know if you've heard stories about that kind of thing where there's just abuse, there's exploitation, and, family, it just destroys families. And it happens sometimes in circumstances that almost the vulture, they feel justified. They literally are, they think and feel, you can just see it, that they are doing what they think is right and fair. And so what we're going to do today is I'm going to go through a couple hypothetical case studies with you. Hypothetical because I'm going to change enough of the facts that nobody would ever be able to identify the true story behind the hypothetical. So we have to. But I'm going to break them down for you and help you see what happened to these two families and why they ended up in this situation. And it wasn't just because of a bad actor. So we're going to dig in on those. I'm going to go through some specifics about how you can, what you need to do to protect your family, make sure that doesn't happen. And then towards the end of the show, we got our questions from the audience. And so I've got a few questions that you are welcome to submit yourself. Look, if you got a question, if you've got a concern about your family, the time to act is right now. This is your wake-up call. Haha, wake up, get it done. Give us a call, 480-750-7788. We are a absolutely premier Chandler estate planning firm. This is all we do. We don't do bankruptcy. We don't do DUIs. We don't do divorce. If you need a referral for one of those, feel free to give us a call. But if you want to protect your family, you want to protect your assets, and you want to make it simple for them, as simple as possible, then that's what you do. You call 480-750-7788. You can also go to radio.keystonelawfirm.com and fill out that form, request a free copy of today's show notes, and we are happy to send that to you. Or you can shoot us an email, radio@keystonelawfirm.com, and ask us any question you like, and we will get back to you as soon as we can. Welcome back, everybody, to Rethink Your Legacy. I'm Francisco Servent, your attorney and problem solver at law. Today, we're digging in on a weird topic that you just wouldn't believe sometimes. How do I even phrase it? So it's what we're going to cover is a couple case studies right now on what happens when the vultures descend while mom and dad are still alive, and they start to just pick apart and prey on mom and dad when they're still vulnerable. I honestly really wouldn't have ever thought this was at all. Maybe this happened once in a million, but until I got into this business and just saw it happen over and over and over. And just the amount of audacity that these people have, and it's family members, just the amount of audacity they have is insane. They literally think they're justified. So the first one that I want to bring to you is this elderly woman who had two daughters. And her husband had died years earlier. Her two daughters were actually quite elderly themselves. And as she was progressing in age, the conversation of her will would come up occasionally, and she would say, "Yeah, I've got a will, and it's all done. It's great, like everything's in order. You girls don't have to worry about it. Everything's in order." And that's about as far as the conversation went. Nobody ever asked to see a copy. Nobody ever asked, well, what's in the will? What did you say? Nobody ever asked, who did you put in charge as the executor? It just, that was the extent of the conversation, which is pretty typical in family, right? I mean, if you've had those conversations with your elderly family members, it would be unusual to talk about it deeper than that. She started to need more help, right? As she gets older, she just needs more help and more help and more help. Her two daughters, one didn't live in the same state. The other one didn't really live in the same city, live clear, hour and a half away. But there was a niece about the same age as her daughters who they had been close with, who actually was kind of in the industry of helping elderly people. And so stepped up and said, "Hey, I'm happy to help. Like, I'm right down the road. I will stop by and check on her." And, that's kind of just what family does, I think. She starts checking on her more and more frequently. And then, it starts to, well, she's going with her. She's taking her to the doctor's appointment and to another doctor's appointment and to another doctor's appointment. And just as literally the months and the years go by, it gets to the point where the niece is completely entrenched in every area of their mom's life. She's helping her, balance her checkbook. She's helping her. She had some rental properties. She's helping her interface with the property management company, helping her pay bills. And pretty soon she's literally in control of every area of her life, but it's entirely informally. There was no formal handoff like, okay, hey family, I'm now officially stepping in and taking over. I'm now officially your mom's power of attorney. I'm now officially in the role of a fiduciary. There was never that formal transition or decision. It just happened slowly and gradually over time. And what ended up happening, she passed away, and the two daughters were, it was kind of weird. It was really awkward. They weren't notified immediately by the niece. And that was sort of the first, hey, holy crap, so they put their mom to rest, and then they asked the niece, who was by then living in the house and really in control of everything. They asked the niece where the will was, what it said, and if she would share a copy. And when after too much not, after taking too long to do it and raising more red flags, she finally emailed it to him. And it was a very simple 2-page document. The problem was it left almost everything to her. It left almost everything to this niece. And the daughters were just not just livid and upset and pissed off, but then they saw the signature line, and it was clearly not their mom's signature. This niece had actually forged or tried to forge the mom's signature on a fraudulent will. And she was passing this thing around as if it was her own. She completed fraud. So the sisters had to hire attorneys, had to hire our firm to go after this niece. And the court threw out the will. It was an obvious fraud. Unfortunately, a lot of the money had already been lost. And, when somebody is a bad money manager, how do you get blood from a turnip? This was a really terrible abuse of somebody stepping in and I mean, completely squandering the estate. She had started to transfer money straight out of mom's account into her account. She had been transferring real estate into her own name. And this was all happening, while mom was still alive. And it was all under the whole insane idea of of the niece saying things like, oh, she wanted me to have it. She told me she wanted, to thank me for helping her. She knew that I was losing time off work, so she was trying to make up for that. And just all these platitudes that then ended with a court completely throwing it all out and saying you completely exploited and abused this elderly, vulnerable person. You can't do that. And that's what this gal did. If you are in that situation, we absolutely can put a stop to it. Give us a call, 480-750-7788. This is not something that all hope is not lost. It can be stopped. It requires an attorney to get involved, to really put pressure and to take the right steps in the court. You've got to give us a call if you know somebody's taking advantage of a family member and exploiting them. 480-750-7788. The other story is a little different. This wasn't exploitation by a sort of distant niece who wasn't set to inherit. This was by her direct son. And he just came in. He actually bulldogged his way in, and nobody in the family wanted to stop him. I guess everybody was kind of just intimidated by him. And he just started taking money out of bank accounts, transferring money, using it to pay his own bills. He did transfer some real estate into his name. Terrible, terrible, terrible. You cannot let somebody do that. And again, in that case, in the second case, we did come in. We went to court, got emergency orders to shut him down, protective orders to protect the mom, seized all of her, not seized, but froze all of her real estate, her finances, got them all under control, got them all accounted for, went after him to return every single dollar. And now mom has the money that she has worked so hard to save for, and it's hers, period. And it's now all accountable. It's all very transparent what's happening with her finances. And we have somebody taking care of all of this for her that is absolutely and 100% loyal to her, not to themselves, not to the brothers and sisters and other family members or the grandkids. Somebody who's just 100% loyal to her. Those are the three things that you got to have: accountability, transparency, and loyalty. I don't want you to end up as one of these. I don't want your parents to end up as one of these horror stories. If you're concerned about this, if this feels like something that might be happening, or maybe you already know is happening in your family, please give us a call. Let's fix this. Or if you want to set things up to be able to prevent this from happening, that's what we do. 480-750-7788. You can also go to radio.keystonelawfirm.com. Please feel free to request the show notes. We'll send them to you this weekend. We'll send them to you right away, and you just fill out that form. Or you can send us an email, radio@keystonelawfirm.com, and ask us any question you want. We're happy to answer. We'll either answer it here on the show, or we'll just shoot you an answer right back by email. Give us a call, 480-750-7788. What we're going to pick up next after the break is a outline for the tools that you should have in place so that you don't become vulture food, and so that you don't become a victim, so that your family members don't become victims to these vultures out there. So we'll see you right after the break. Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to Rethink Your Legacy. This is Francisco Servent. I'm your host today. Today we're talking about how to avoid and protect your family from those vultures who just love to descend when mom and dad are at their most vulnerable. So you can either use this information to protect your mom and dad if they are in that vulnerable, stage of life, that sort of legacy and care stage, or protect yourself from ending up there, right? I know that you might be worried that you're headed into that stage of life. And it's scary. It's scary to think I'm going to become a burden on my kids. I'm going to start needing more help. I don't want to. I want to be independent. I want to take care of myself, and everybody does. Nobody wants to become somebody who needs help, but it's something that we have to protect against, so that if it does happen, you've got the right people in place who you can trust and who won't be afraid to stand up for you and protect you. So what we covered in the last segment is a couple hypothetical case studies that gave us the reason why this is so important. I mean, hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars was lost in each of those examples. And in the second one, we were able to step in during the crisis and cut it off and get back a bunch of that money from the vulture. Here, let's talk about how to keep it from ever happening. That's where I want you to be, okay? How to get help during, when you need it, without having to lose all your control. That's what the balance is, right? I want to protect myself, but I don't want to give up all this control. I don't want to give up all control. I don't want to give up any control. I want to still be in charge of my life. And yes, that's the goal here. So there's two big areas that you need to deal with. There's two big areas that you got to protect. One of them, so one is medical and the other is financial. So let's break it down. In your medical side, what we're talking about there is 3 or 4 sub discussions, 3 or 4 topics, I think, that you need to deal with. Okay, the first one is, who is going to make that that real decision when you can't make it yourself? You might be unconscious. You might have an advanced cognitive, like brain issue, Alzheimer's or dementia. You might have had a stroke. You might have been in a car accident. It could be anything. Who's going to make that final ultimate decision the way you would have wanted it made? Okay, that's called your healthcare agent. And where you designate that is in something called a healthcare power of attorney. So healthcare power of attorney, okay, that's where you designate who is going to make that ultimate decision. But that's also the same document and the same person who's going to make some more longer term decisions if needed. Okay, it's not always needed, but if it is needed. And those are going to be decisions like if you get Alzheimer's or dementia, or you have a stroke and you need to stay and live in some type of assisted living facility or group home or nursing home or memory care, or at home, but you need somebody to be with you, you need caregivers there in home, then they're going to be the ones to decide, where that is, in what state, all those things, who, and even who can visit you. They're going to fill out the form at the assisted living or group home and say, here's who is allowed to visit and here's who's not allowed to visit. They get to make that decision. So your healthcare agent has a lot of power. And so it's got to be somebody you trust to make a decision that you would have wanted them to make, okay? The second part of the medical is something that is called your HIPAA authorization. This is the federal privacy law that says nobody's allowed to find out your information, your medical information, unless you give them permission. Okay, you have to give them permission first. Okay, good. We like that. So this is where you give certain people permission to find out where you're living, to find out what's going on, what room at the hospital you're at, to basically just, they're allowed to have the information. And they don't have to go through the agent. They don't have to go through your healthcare agent. They can go directly to your doctor. They can go directly to the hospital and say, what's going on with mom or dad? And that is their access. So you fill out that list that says, hey, these, 5, 6, 2, however many people, these names are allowed to have this information, and nobody can restrict it. That's you saying you want them to. The next one is or the next two actually are with regard to your wishes. Now, if you need to create these documents, then pick up that phone. Don't wait. Give us a call, 480-750-7788. Geez, you just can't wait to do this stuff. The emergency hits before you know it, and then it's your family who's screwed. So get your act together. So the second two parts of the medical or the last two parts are the living will. This is what just purely states your wishes about end of life care. So whether you want to be on artificial life support or not, whether you want CPR, whether you want, just all those things. And then what was the last thing? And then there's a longer form medical questionnaire that you can fill out that says, here's all the different things I do or don't want in different medical scenarios, right? I do want a blood transfusion. I don't want a blood transfusion. I do want, aggressive, advanced research therapy. I don't want to be a research candidate. Just, you can spell all of that out. Okay, that's the medical stuff. And it's critical because that's really the medical person is the one who's going to grant access to you or not and decide where you live or are moved, okay? So the second big thing is your financial controls. You've got to have some financial controls so that your money is used for you, period. And the person in charge of this has to do it and should only be doing this under a form of a legal document, not as a joint owner of bank accounts and not as a joint owner of anything. Do not add your kids as a joint owner on your bank accounts. This is the biggest recipe for disaster when it comes to exploitation, allegations of abuse. So many problems. Do not add your kids as joint owners. Add them as power of attorney or add them as through your living trust. Those are the ways to do it, because under that document, the power of attorney or the living trust, they are legally required to only use it for your benefit, period. And if they use it for anything besides that, then it's illegal and they can be held accountable. If it's a joint account, it's so much harder. And we've seen circumstances where we couldn't even do it because we had one where the father put the son on as joint, and it's literally been fighting. The family has been fighting about this forever, but the son ended up inheriting everything because he was able to get his dad to put him on as joint owner of all the accounts. And we're having a very hard time proving that the dad didn't, because the dad's passed away, that he didn't intend to just make a gift. And it is a gigantic nightmare. So please do that with a power of attorney and a living trust. That is the best way. It gives them control. It gives them access so they can pay the bills, so they can deal with things in an emergency. But they can't just run off with the money. They can't start paying their own bills. They can't start taking money out and putting it in their account. Okay. Those are the two big things that I want you to walk away with. And we'll happy to send that to you in the show notes for today. Just go to radio.keystonelawfirm.com and request it. If you need help putting this stuff together, please don't wait. The wait is what makes these problems happen. That's what it is. And right now you aren't in the problem, I hope. So give us a call and let's protect your family. 480-750-7788. 480-750-7788. And let my team explain to you what the process is. We make it very low pressure. We make it very casual, where we just sit down, we discuss and figure out what your issues are, what's going on, and then what are your goals with this stuff? What do you want it to look like? And then we lay out what the options are. It's very straightforward. 1, 2, 3. Most families, we can give you your options in that first appointment and figure out what they are. So give us a call, 480-750-7788, or go to radio.keystonelawfirm.com, where you can request this week's show notes. And look, if you have any questions, send us a question at radio@keystonelawfirm.com. After the break, we're going to pick it up and actually answer a couple of these questions. Welcome back, everybody. This is Francisco Servent. I'm your attorney and problem solver at law with Keystone Law Firm. We are a Chandler estate planning, asset protection, and estate administration firm. My goal really is just to help you protect your assets, protect your family, so that your legacy means something positive, means something good, because I truly believe your estate plan, it is your last chance to make a difference. So get it right. Get it right. This is the last act. This is the thing that your family is going to have to deal with, and it's going to be the last sort of taste in their mouth of your memories. All right, we've got a few questions from our audience, and we're just going to answer those right now. If you have questions, I invite you, send them in, radio@keystonelawfirm.com. Jump in the conversation, help us, understand what it is you guys are wondering. And guess what? We're not going to send you a bill for those questions. Yes, it's a free question. Send it in. radio@keystonelawfirm.com. We're happy to answer them. If you're chomping at the bit for help after hearing today's show, or just even right now hearing my amazingly soothing, so comforting voice, then I invite you to call 480-750-7788. Let us help you figure out what your options are to protect your family. Our first question, what's the difference between a revocable trust and an irrevocable trust? All right. Now, some fancy lawyers, or I don't know, fancy or not, but they'll say irrevocable trust. I say irrevocable, but I don't know which way is correct. So we're going to go with my way for today. What's the difference between revocable and irrevocable? All right. So what that word just means in and of itself is it means you can make changes to it. You can revoke it or not. If it's revocable, you can make changes to it whenever you want. If it's irrevocable, means once you sign that trust document, you cannot make changes. It is set in stone. Done. Period. Why would you want to do that? There's lots of reasons. Now, just like football teams, there's whole lots of flavors out there. Just like football players, there's whole lots of positions and people who play the same position differently. They have different styles. Same exact thing with a trust. From the biggest picture, there's lots of different kinds of trusts. And from revocable trust, there's actually lots of different types of ones of those. And irrevocable trust, there's lots of different types of ones of those. But when you're getting into irrevocable trust, generally speaking, you're adding some advantage to it that you can't get unless you also restrict it somewhat. And so it might be for asset protection. It might be a tax saving strategy. It might be to protect your money from nursing home bankruptcy. It might be, to start doing a gifting program to your kids, your grandkids while you're still alive, so you can reduce estate taxes. It might be for a charitable purpose with like a charitable remainder trust. It might be, there literally are hundreds of examples. But you're only going to do irrevocable trust planning if it's got a very specific, tangible benefit to do so. You don't do that by accident. You don't do that when you're just trying to plan your estate, generally speaking. When you're just kind of planning your estate, sort of taking place of your will, that's what a revocable living trust is for. Okay? All right. If you need help with that, 480-750-7788 is who you call. Give us a call, 480-750-7788, or go to radio.keystonelawfirm.com. Our second question is, can't this all be simpler? Why is it so complicated? I totally get where you're coming from. It was really, when I first started in law school, my background is in engineering, and I went to law school. I never really enjoyed reading at all. It was something you had to do to get through school. I did well in engineering, have me read a spreadsheet, sure. But books, first year of law school, where we were literally having to read hundreds of pages of case studies every night, was a very challenging task. But, you learn and you start to, get faster at it. And then same thing applies to all these legal contracts and then now the trust and things like that, where they're just so long. And I'm like, come on, this is so complicated. And I got to learn that specifically in estate planning, but also in a lot of other legal drafting, what happens is a really good lawyer will put things in there that there's a probability of like 0.01% chance you'll ever need it. They'll put some paragraph in there, some clause, or even some big section. And knowing that if we had to bet money, we would say it'll never be used. But we'll put it in there anyway, and we'll say, just live with it. That's just what we'll do. Because here's the reason why. If I put it in there and you never need it, your family won't feel any sort of pain whatsoever. None. Zero. I guess one moment they'll say, why is this thing so long and complicated? That'll be the moment of pain. But until I say, oh, well, that, 60% of the document doesn't apply, you guys don't even have to worry about it. Then they can go, oh, good. And that's really what we do when a client passes away, is we sit down with the family. We tell them, hey, 2/3 of this thing doesn't apply because now we know exactly what the situation was on their death. And we're good. We don't have to worry about it. But the problem happens is with a immature planner who doesn't take that kind of maturity with their practice. They'll cut it down to the bone to where it's as short as possible, because that's what my clients feel comfortable with. And that's what I don't have to explain to them why this thing is so long. Okay, that's fine. But when the 1% happens and you can't predict that from a crystal ball, we don't have a crystal ball. then not only is that 1% that family going to be so devastated because that clause, that paragraph, that section wasn't in there, but honestly, you as an attorney, your malpractice is going to get hit big time. And I'm not going to hold back for my clients. My clients are going to get every benefit of all the experience that I've had. And so, yeah, it's long, it's complicated, but I analogize it to when I go to the doctor. Like, I'm on a couple prescription medications, like for my thyroid and I forget what else. But my doctor, when she first discovered this, she didn't say, she did. She said something about here's how your thyroid works and here's how it affects your body. Honestly, I don't really remember what she said. I just remember her saying your thyroid is off and we're going to fix it. And okay, great. And now I'm on this pill I take every morning. And do I completely understand the chemical makeup of this weird little pill that I take every morning? No, I have no idea. And apparently it's super sensitive to the dose. I mean, if I take a little too much, I feel all off. If I take a little too little, I feel all off. And she can tell by all my blood work. And I don't question that. I trust her. I say, what do I need to do? I take the pill. And that's what you can do if you want to take charge of your family's estate plan and create your new legacy. That's what we do. We make it simple for you. We protect you. And that's what I invite you to do today, is to give us a call, 480-750-7788. Your first step with us is a discovery hour. Come in, sit down, or we do it virtually right now by a video call, and have a casual, comfortable conversation with us to understand your issues, your goals, so that we can explain your options. And that's it. If at the end of the appointment you say, no, thank you, that's fine. We'll part friends. If you see an option that you like and feels good, then you get started. That's what we do. And so give us a call to do that, 480-750-7788, or you can go to our website, radio.keystonelawfirm.com, and request this week's show notes, or request a copy of my free book, Pack Your Parachute, where I go into 12 more topics on the subject that I know can help you protect your family and create your new legacy.